Hello and welcome to the Lost Art Podcast. I'm Garen. I'm here with Paul.
How are you?
And this week we're doing it slightly different from ordinary. We are doing 5 songs instead of 6. That may be a reoccurring thing that happens because podcasts were getting a little bit out of control. They were getting a little bit too long. Yeah. And like 6 songs each.
I felt like sometimes I was throwing a 6th one on just to make up the 6th. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah. Like sometimes, listen, if 5 will work, we'll stick with 5. If we need 6, we'll use the 6. But exactly. We're getting a little bit long. We always try to aim for like an hour and a bit, and there's been a few there now that were fucking 2
going over the 2 hours, yeah.
Which is it's all right. Listen, you have a week to listen to it, so you don't have to listen to it all in one go. And then you've got the playlist to go with. So that's like realistically, time wise, it's a fierce amount of content that you're getting in one kind of blast. So yeah, we're going to have 5 songs each this evening. And we'll see what happens next week. But I think 5 might be the standard from now on.
Yeah, could be.
Because we've done a few before. We put 10 in each, and all. We went to be fucking mad on a couple of occasions. This week's show is called Do the Robot, and it's about bands or acts that embraced electronic music and kind of went in that direction. Maybe they were known for one style of music beforehand. They decided to do an experimental album, or maybe the band moved in that direction entirely. But yeah, Do the Robot.
I always found that interesting. I always found bands that like either felt like they had to embrace electronic, especially around the 90s to early 2000s.
Yeah.
You saw some doing it, and sometimes they should not have. So sometimes they didn't do it right.
Yeah, there's a couple on this playlist that are kind of curveballs, and there's a couple that are really good, actually. Your first one that's going to come up now in a minute, I actually enjoyed that. I listened to it earlier. There was 2 or 3 on here that from your list that pleasantly surprised me. My ones are, what are my ones? I mean, I'm looking at them here. One of them is a complete curveball. The other one is an argument. Looking at the list here, one is actually better than it has any right to be, and one is fucking shocking.
Yeah.
So I have a good mix there, and I see you've a great mix here now as well. You've crossed a lot of different spectrums with your list here this evening as well. So
like there's a couple of, like, if I could have picked the 6th one, but realistically, the last one.
Yeah, 5.
I'll mention it. But 5 is grand, I think, to be honest.
My last one's half an hour long, man. That'll cover both of us for our 6th one. Yeah.
So having like a little, I wanted to read up about like how electronic music started before all of these acts decided to jump on a bandwagon. Not always, but sort of. They all sort of did.
Yes.
Like I don't think any of these, most of these artists are rock artists. I don't think any of them sort of revolutionized electronic music. It had already started without them. Realistically, they jumped on it. Some of them did it without them, but it did start in the late 60s, and that's with the Theremin and the Mellotron.
Yes,
and the Moog synthesizers came in. That's kind of gave a synthy sound. That doesn't necessarily mean it's electronic music, but they are electronic instruments. So it is a huge part of it. Then in the 70s, you had a lot of synthesizers and the start of drum machines as well. And in the 80s, you had everything. Like you could make a whole song, with just
exactly
thing. So I was reading up about like the first album to use the Moog, and it was actually I thought it was the Doors' "Strange Days," but it doesn't really count because it was only used to sort of warp Jim Morrison's voice. The thing. So, but the first one to actually use them as like the Moog properly as a keyboard was Morg Garrison's The Zodiac Sessions Cosmic Sounds.
Cool.
There we go. So there's a bit of a tip if 1967. They have to have an actual Moog programmer there, like to program it there. Yeah. It's not an actual keyboard.
Yeah.
Electronic albums, like through the years, sort of. Electronic albums really only started in the 80s, I think, but Kraftwerk showed you in the 70s. With their first album in 1970 showed you don't even need guitars, and that could have made people go, fuck, right, what can we do more?
Kraftwerk are definitely on the top of the hill. You've got guys like Thomas Dolby and stuff like that as well. Building their own as well, who are absolute pioneers.
Neu as well, I suppose. As well. There's a lot of them. The first album that used a drum machine for all the percussion was Kingdom Come's Journey from 1972, and that used a drum machine called the Bentley Rhythm Ace. So that's where they got their name from. And Kingdom Come is Arthur Brown from the Crazy World of Arthur Brown. So the first album to use the most samples extensively, like a load of samples in every song, was Stevie Wonder's Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants from 1979. So realistically, what you're talking is the roadmap to electronic music was started from 67 to 79.
Yeah.
Or to 80, really. 79. Like, that's when people start. Because 79 was the last year, really, that shit was mad expensive. Because in the 80s, electronic equipment became so cheap, people could experiment more. They weren't going out to buy crazy expensive keyboards and stuff like that. So that's why the 80s is fucking awesome. It had a lot of people making music in their bedroom, basically, and then bringing it into the studio, which is what I do. What I still do. And so that's it. From 67 to 79, you saw the introduction of it, and then the 80s exploded in the 90s because it was cheap.
Exactly.
Japanese fucking keyboards and all. Awesome stuff. Yeah. So that's my little rundown of like how electronic music sort of came to be before we get into why some of these artists who didn't start off that way did. Exactly. Who is your...
Well,
it's me. No, it's me.
It's you going first. So, So, okay, what are we looking at? We're looking at 5. Okay, yeah. So, who is your first one?
Sorry, yeah, my first one is U2 with the song "Mofo" from Pop from 1997. I love the album Pop. I really did. I've always loved it since I heard it as a teenager. And I remember at the time, I wasn't trying to be edgy. I just loved electronic music so much that I preferred it to other U2 albums, but I didn't really. I just thought I did, that way.
Yeah.
So after Achtung, I find a lot of these artists, the songs I picked were from the electronic album, but they had dabbled in it a little bit before. Yeah, and we'll get into that. It's happened a few times now. So U2's Pop album, 1997 Pop, wasn't the first time that they used electronic, because as a lot of people know, it was the Zeropa album.
That's right.
In 93. It was 93 or 94. That was it, maybe 95. I can't remember. That it was the first time that they kind of started dabbling in it. And it wasn't hugely... I think that's a good album as well. I didn't really give Zeropa much of a go until a while ago when I was like... I remember the songs Numb and Lemon, and I liked them a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew that they were electronic. And I remember not knowing as a kid, no one really pulled them up on it because it was still U2. It was... Bono was singing a little bit differently. It was still quite... All the songs on Zeropa are quite dark as well. So they didn't get kind of... called out for being piss takers like they did with Pop, because when Pop came out, people didn't know what the fuck to do with it. They absolutely really didn't. I really think that in 93 with Zeropa they were ahead of the curve. I think not many rock bands were doing electronic stuff in 93.
Not really.
We'll get on to one later, but so like that's a fucking 4-year difference to get to
it's amazing how quick things turn around, isn't it?
Yeah, but this so like Zeropa, they got away with it. There was still a load of kind of ballady songs in it as well, like that. It was also, it felt like an extension of the Zoo TV tour, where they started using. That's where they started using electronic more for the intros to songs and stuff like that, and the background it suited the kind of crazy big fucking lemon thing that they had. But yeah, let's move on to the 97 with Pop. That absolutely threw a load of people because that's quite heavy on the electronics and the samples and drum beats and stuff like that, and it is, as the name suggests, quite poppy. The Discotheque came out and it really fucking split the crowd, like big it time. Really did.
Yeah, I remember people hating on it. All the old school U2 people like, the fuck is this?
Because not only was it U2 being humorous for the first time, they had tongue-in-cheek stuff with "Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me," which is their best song.
Yes,
their best song. I don't care what anyone says. The Ground Beneath Her Feet may be gone, maybe, I don't know, but it's definitely... It's not Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horse. That is a banger, though.
Yeah, it is.
But look, we can all talk about like all of our favourite ones, because he did have a trouble growing up in a Clontarf for the Orangemen album and stuff, So sorry, if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, that was Bon Jovi came out with a wild anecdote that he was kind of comparing himself, his hard life in the Bronx, to the hard life of Bono being beaten up by Orangemen.
Grown up in Finglas and going to school in Malahide and maybe hanging around Clontarf.
Glasnevin, wasn't it? Glasnevin?
Finglas, yeah. It's not, he wasn't battered by Orangemen anywhere in the south of Ireland. Like,
No.
let's get that out of the way.
Nobody was. I don't think even by accident.
No.
Right. So, this is the first time we saw U2 being really poppy, really disco-y, electronic-y, and silly for the first time. Now, it was a bit ballsy because there's a good break between the last album and people didn't know it was tongue-in-cheek. Genuinely did not know that Discotheque was tongue-in-cheek. And also the video was a lot for them to take in. That video went on to definitely inspire George Michael's Outside video, I think.
Maybe.
I really think I had that feel for it. And Discotheque is a good song. I don't often go back. I don't think it's one of the strongest ones on this album at all. I think Mofo was my favourite song on it because it just sounds like a like pop industrial, like, you know, like fucking, I don't know, Cell Dweller or something. It has like, it's just completely the most different of all. Even it's so different than all the U2 songs, even on this album and other albums. I think it's the one most standout U2 track that that does not sound like them at all. I remember when it came out, the album came out, buying it. I mean, like my mate wasn't that mad into U2, but his brother was mad into them as well. So we went up to HMV and we bought 2 copies and we brought it back and he stuck it on. We'd heard Discotheque the single, and I remember his ma walking in going, "What's this?" He was like, "Mas, you know U2?" And she's like, "That's shite." Fuck, man. Like, everyone's like, all Mas love U2. Oh, that's a lovely song. That's a lovely song. Bono's a lovely voice. Lovely fella. Lovely guy. She's like, "That's fucking shite." And I was like, you know what? People are going to hate this. So they had the single Staring at the Sun, which I do like. Gone is a fucking phenomenal song off that. Staring at the Sun feels like an Oasis song the more you listen to it.
It does,
it's really fucking Oasis-y.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a brilliant album. I don't think it's good. I think it's actually a little bit better than that. I think it's brilliant. I do think Bono is the weak link on the whole album, actually. I think his lyrics, vocally, he's fine, whatever. Lyrically, it is not good. And he takes the tongue-in-cheek thing a bit too far. He could have got way more subversive. He could have got way more I don't think he has that sarcastic. No, I don't think I think his imagery, and on stage he pulls it off like that kind of thing. But in this record, not so much. But I still think it's such a fucking great album. And they opened up this song Mofo opened up every single gig of the Pop Mart tour.
I like this song.
Yeah, apart from the song Pop Mart, which is sort of like a little intro thingy, but it's this song. And it is such a great song to start a gig to. I'm going to rage and I never saw them on this tour.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I wrote at the end of them all to ask myself, did it work? It did work commercially, not as much. Critically, it was divided. It's actually degraded critically over time. You don't know. It is. People have changed their mind. Going, you know what? I liked it at the time. Now it's not. It's because some things electronically, especially, don't hold their own. I still think it's a great album.
Here's the problem for me with a lot of like U2, Rolling Stones, fucking Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, whatever. People who are almost victims of their own success, right? So let's say your average Joe, right? Pick your ma or your dad or your uncle or whatever, you know, who likes a few tunes or whatever, and you get them tickets to Croker to go and see Bruce Springsteen, right? And they get in there and Brucey plays even 50-50 classic hits and stuff off his, then like the other 50% is stuff off his last 10 albums, right? That person's going to be like, play too much new stuff. Like U2, realistically, when I think of U2, I think of, you know, fucking Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby and War. I think of all those classic, you know, like New Year's Day, and I think of all that shit. So that's what I assume it's going to be from the second they start until whatever 2-3 hours later. I'm going to get the greatest hits of U2. And I'm probably not going to get that. And if I'm not a die-hard U2 fan who wants to hear a song like this, like Mofo, then I'm going to be disappointed. Even if he plays...
Yeah, you won't get it. You won't get it off this album, as far as I know. I'd have to check up there. I think this was just a period between Zeropa and Pop and the Zoo TV and Pop Mart tours where they were just having fucking mad fun. Yeah. And I don't think... Yeah, I think you're right. You're not going to get Mofo. You might get Discotheque if you're very lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
Just as a joke, but you're not going to get Staring at the Sun and Do You Feel Loved? There's so many really good fucking songs on this.
Yeah, the problem is your average show isn't going to give a fuck about them, you know?
No, and I don't even know if they enjoy playing them anymore. They might look at them now as a bit
actually,
I think they still love Mofo, because the more they played it, the more they started to love it. Even though
sounds like fun to play.
It is, but if you watch the live shows, Bono sounds out of breath. I don't know how,
because he sings weird. He sings weird in it.
Yeah. It's fucking. I like it. I really have a lot of the riff.
You want to play a bit of it anyway, don't you?
Yeah, well, let's stick it on just in case anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to believe this is U2 sometimes. Yeah,
I couldn't believe this. Now, like I remember this album, but I don't remember every single thing about it.
No,
so when I listened to it again today, I was like, "Fuck, man, that's really, really good." This is Mofo by U2. You would absolutely be forgiven for thinking that was like Apollo 440 or something.
Or even a filter, something like that.
It just has... There's a particular kind of weird... That
bass riff is great. Well, the bass synth riff.
Yeah, it's just... so fucking like 90s. You can hear that. Like like you were saying, filter and stuff like that. Those kind of alt-rock electronic bands, and then stuff like you said, Bentley Rhythm Ace and Apollo 440 and shit like that. They were all mad for that particular sound, and it was in almost every album had like 2 or 3 songs of that sound.
Yeah, it was hard to escape. All producers wanted to do, because they'd all got Pro Tools, and they were like, "Look, lads, do this." But one of the people I wanted to put on this list was actually Motley Crue, who re-released "Shout at the Devil" in a more electronic industrial style, and it's way better. It's way better than the original.
Really?
Like way better. It's way more suited to it. But that was Mofo by U2. One of my favorite examples of when a band did electronic. Slightly out of their depth, but I really still think with the producers that they have, they pulled it off. They did it. Yeah. Who's your first one?
My first one is... Who was my first? My first one is Soulwax with the song "Is It Always Binary?" And Soulwax were a Belgian band from Ghent. Based around 2 brothers. Ghent, David and Stephen. I think it's De Wale. I think how you pronounce it. De Wale. Well, it's Europe, isn't it? So W's or V's, so it could be De Wale or De Vale.
Yeah, in Belgium it probably would be.
Yeah. Loads of lineup changes over the years, but it's always the 2 brothers. It's always the 2 boys. Always David and Stephen. Igor Cavalera is actually in the band at the moment. And
what?
Yeah, he's been in them for a while now.
If you had to give me 7,000 guesses, I wouldn't have gotten him.
Yeah, no.
Name him. You've got 7,000 guesses.
Exactly,
Would never.
No, we never would enter into it.
No.
Yeah, the current kind of incarnation of the band has like 2 drummers and shit like that, and he's one of them. So he's been playing with them on and off for years. It's almost like a kind of a tag in and out system now. It's all.
I like that you picked this because you're going to have to answer me the massive question. I'm not even going to ask you. It's going to come up.
Yeah.
The difference between this and someone else.
Okay.
And where the line is drawn and where is it blurred. It's all black and white. It's all grey for me, this area.
Yeah, it's very peculiar. Now, I might even answer your question now in a second before you even ask it.
No, I won't ask it because I don't want you to get to it in your own time.
So they began life as a regular kind of alternative rock band. They had 2 albums, Leave the Story Untold in 1996 and Much Against Everybody's Advice in 1998. Both of those albums are fucking superb. Absolute peaches of albums.
I only know Much Against Everyone's Advice.
Leave the Story Untold is even maybe a little bit more raw, a little bit more garage rock and roll.
Right, yeah.
Fucking 2 perfect fucking albums. Perfect albums. Now,
so I love these Belgian kind of bands. These are Deus.
Fuck yeah, you've been talking about them for ages. There's a lot of these Belgian bands that were just. Now, here's the thing, right? I read years ago.
Better had Belgian band in the last episode as well, the kids.
We did, yeah. I think there might be a reason for that. So, there was a thing years ago. It's like, as you know, we both collect records, and fucking I used to have a record store, and one of the places on earth that was kind of a divine source of records was Belgium. Right, there's like record shops all over Belgium that have stuff that nowhere else on earth has, and the reason for that apparently is that most of the stuff that was pressed everywhere else in the world, most of Europe's records came from the Czech Republic. There's a pressing plant called GZ pressing plant, so most of the world's records, even now, are still pressed in the Czech Republic. A large percentage of them. Now, every single country on earth had its own pressing plants. There was ones in Africa. There was loads of them in Ireland. England was riddled with them all the way up until like the kind of late 80s, early 90s when CDs and cassettes kind of took over and the record business went down. But apparently, Belgium was used as the main shipping port for almost all records in the world that were going to Europe, right? So stuff that was pressed in Europe was shipped to Belgium, and from there then it was sent to like the States and South America and fucking all this kind of shit. And stuff that was pressed in North America and in South America and Africa, wherever you want to, Ireland, England, it all shipped to Belgium then as well, because Belgium had one of the main fucking kind of holding areas for stocks for all of Europe. And because of that, loads of containers went missing over the years, right? Apparently to this day, like if you wanted some mint on card, fully boxed He-Man action figures, there's a chance there's a 40-foot container full of them left over from 1985 in Belgium.
Right.
It's
That's
just
Jesus. I want to go
exactly.
Open all them.
Yeah. So apparently, like Belgium is their place. So I have mates who like you'll hear people talking about Germany and Berlin being like the center of records for Europe, but people in the know understand. No, it's not. It's Belgium. You have to go to Belgium. Like the record shops in Belgium have stuff that like was thought was hadn't been pressed in 40 years, and you're finding mint sealed copies of it. So Belgium is the place. It's literally like one of the, much like Sweden being like kind of the music capital of the world. Where you come out of school at 17 and you turn around to the government and like, I want to be in a band, and they just start giving me money to be in a band. Exactly. Yeah. Belgium have similar kind of stuff going on. So Belgium is very, very heavy on the arts and into music as well. So you do end up with kids and even fucking grown-ass fools like us. If you are from Belgium, you would have been exposed to every genre of music imaginable, and it was on tap all the time in every shop. Well,
when we were one of the best grass pop is one of the best.
Exactly, yeah. Like it's still going on to this day. But like if you remember when we were young fellas and you wanted to get the new, Megadeth album, and you knew it was out on the 1st of October, you might not arrive in Ireland until fucking November or December. You know what I mean? And you'd have to traipse around town trying to find a copy of it. Well, somewhere like Belgium, because it was like one of the main ports on the trade route, everything was there. Belgium was just one of the places. And like I said, to this day, if you want records, if you're in the know, you go to Belgium and you start rooting around the record shops in Belgium.
Belgium's great for records, then chocolate, chips, RPGs, and fucking beer. Obviously, beer.
Yeah, the best beer in the world, as far as I'm concerned. I am.
Yeah.
And their roads are beautiful. I've driven across Belgium.
Actually, Belgian people are fucking deadly.
Weirdest fucking language ever, as well.
It's like wherever it went was a sort of a border town with.
It's like half Flemish, half German, half French, half fucking everything. Yeah. It's mad.
Great crack though. Great crack.
I've only spent a couple of nights there and I never really went in the piss or anything like that. I passed through it, like I said, because I drive to Poland every year. I always stop in Belgium.
Yeah.
I picked up a hedgehog actually once in Belgium. It was a highlight in my life.
A Belgian hedgehog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So by 2002, they'd already released Much Against Everybody's Voice 1998, and they were doing particularly well off that. The singles were doing well. But they start getting interested in electronic music, and they were asked to do a couple of remixes. So they start doing remixes for whoever the fuck could have them, you know. The music industry seemed to realise that these guys, Dave and Stephen, kind of know what they're doing, because there was definitely electronic influences in Much Against Everybody's Voice as well. Where there was
a bit of it, yeah.
It was just, you know, they throw the salt and pepper seasoning of a weird synth in there every now and again. So this led to their remix project, which was called Too Many DJs.
Yeah, right. So Soulwax is before Too Many DJs.
Soulwax is the rock and roll band, right?
Yeah.
And then Too Many DJs come out, and that's strictly electronic and almost entirely.
Soulwax was before. They weren't DJing as Too Many DJs before Soulwax or anything like that.
No.
Oh, right,
no.
Right.
What happened is, in between 2002 was when their first album, Too Many DJs, was called As Heard on Radio, Soulwax Part 2 was the name of the album.
Which they're putting the Soulwax in there, confusing.
Exactly. This is the thing. I think what they're trying to be is like a mini tentacled monster. You know what I mean? Like there's no real difference between Too Many DJs and Soulwax. Not now, there's not. In 2020, or for the last 10, 15 years, there has not been a difference. You know what I mean?
Right.
They just decide what label they want to put out underneath. Like their big thing was that they had a radio show called Radio Soulwax, right?
That was really big.
Yeah, it was huge. And they done remixes of every genre imaginable. How they managed to do it, I could not tell you. They done 1980s hardcore punk, like 3 or 4 hour remix session on radio once, and it was the maddest fucking thing I've ever heard. I've been trying to find it for years online, and it's every band, like all the bands that I'm into, Slapshot, Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, all that kind of shit, they managed to remix them and mash them up. And I've never heard it. How they managed to do it, I couldn't tell you, but it all sounded great. But you name the genre, they done it. And eventually they released this as Heard on Radio, Soulwax Part 2, which was their first album, because I think the first one was like a radio only thing that they couldn't get the rights to. Now their first album was a remix album as well. Now the weird type of remix album where they took parts of kind of famous songs that they got permission from and used bits of them in their kind of own compositions. It's very unusual. 2004, they released this album called Any Minute Now, which is, to be honest with you, it's kind of where I start dropping out, because I start getting particularly electronic. And
right, so they were maybe is Soulwax becoming original electronic bits with not much sampling? They were writing it themselves, but Too Many DJs was still sample based.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and instead of starting a third band.
Exactly. To
Soulwax just became original electronic. Right, exactly. Okay, right.
Soulwax morphed from this kind of rock and roll, alt rock fucking band into original electronic compositions. And Too Many DJs kind of stayed as the remix guys.
Right, okay.
If you get me. Now, as far as I know, Too Many DJs definitely did release some original stuff as well, but I think they've stopped doing that now, and it's just all under the Soulwax kind of banner. They just started sounding like this. To me, they evolved into this. They found this middle ground around this album, Any Minute Now, where it just starts sounding like this strange kind of electronic Queens of Stone Age. And I don't really like Queens of Stone Age. And
you don't? You're not a fan?
It's not for me. And
yeah, I like them, but I won't. I wouldn't be shocked when someone tells me they don't like them. I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah, like the electronic influence just stopped being minor and started becoming major. And then when this album came around, this album was called From DB, I think is the name of this album, and it's like it's fucking. I'm gonna play a bit of it so people can hear it. But you'll hear, like,
if you know Soulwax beforehand.
Yeah, this will sound mad weird to you if you know Soulwax. We played Soulwax on the radio before. We played them on the TV show. We played them on the podcast before as well.
Yeah.
But when the playlist comes out, you can just click on view artists and you'll see. Actually, believe it or not, their rock and roll stuff isn't even on the top 5. It's all the electronic stuff.
I figured after a while of playing festivals, you're not going to get your rock songs from the early 2000s on the top list. Yeah.
Anyway, this is called "Is It Always Binary," and you'll hear what I'm talking about. No one moves around. No one moves around. No one moves around. So I mean,
that's mad. Yeah, that'd be. I like that, but it'd be better with a few more layers. It's very.
It's very sparse. Now there's other songs. They have songs like "E Talking." That's probably their biggest song, and they got in trouble over the video for that, which is just about. I think every verse in the song is meant to be from the viewpoint of somebody who's taking a different drug or something like that, and the video is them going around a festival doing loads of different drugs and following the people.
Right.
Weird shit. They got in trouble for that. The "E Talking," the song is actually all right. It's not bad. And it's closer to the kind of rock and roll stuff, but it's more electronic. It has that they're the kings of melodies and hooks. They really are. Like they know how to write a chorus. These boys.
Yeah, they do have that European
big time. Yeah,
new wave post rock.
Whatever that European thing is.
That Much Against Everyone's Voice is actually 1998. I thought that was 2001.
98. But you can hear in there why they need someone like Igor Cavalera doing all this fucking drum shite and all that as well. You know?
Makes perfect sense, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Anyway, that was Soulwax with "Is It Always Binary." Does it work? It's more popular, and it's probably the music they always wanted to make.
But people like me and you have dropped out.
I absolutely dropped out, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm probably never going to get back in.
We're never going back.
Yeah, I'm probably not. Like I every now and again, I have to force myself to do it. We're going like, I know I'm missing something. I have to do it, and I listen to like from DW or fucking one of the other albums. I'm like, because I have a load of the singles. What I used to do whenever they brought out a new album, I'd buy the CD singles and I bring it home and I put it on. And I go, wow, not this time.
Not buying the album. I've only wasted a $5, not fucking 20 quid. Yeah.
Honest to God, like not today, Satan. Who was your next one?
My next one is a guy who switched to electronic music, but had every entitlement to do so because he was one of the people who inadvertently created it.
All right.
Created industrially and electronic. Well, we don't think he created electronic music, but it's David Bowie, and it's the Heart's Filthy Lesson from the album Outside 1995.
The song is great as well.
Yeah, it's a banger. It's not his first foray into it's one of his first really. So Scary Monsters from 1980 sounds like it's an industrial glam rock song. And that influenced Mechanical Animals, and it definitely influenced Trent Reznor.
You can hear stuff in this song as well. There's a very interesting kind of weird guitar shit going on here that he obviously took from somewhere else as well and just loved
absolutely. It. Yeah. Well, it's mad because like there's no doubt that Manson and Reznor are absolute mad Bowie fans. They just are, and it's interesting because
there's the thing I've been trying to find. There was a tour with 9 Inch Nails and Bowie.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
All right, yeah. Cause no. It's not even going to talk about that. But apparently, it was released on vinyl.
Oh, I saw that in Golden Discs.
Oh, really? Because I'm trying to fucking find it. I'm trying to find
it
online.
Shit.
Yeah, and I really want
I bet. You know what? It's Golden Disc Living Valley. I guarantee no one's bought it. Although we'd want to get there before we put this out.
I don't even know where Liffey Valley is. I'll figure it out. It'll be grand.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I saw it there. Yeah, I saw it there. Yeah, so it was about 1993 where he kind of started putting the foot in, much like U2, who did it in 93 as well. They were putting their feet in it. He did it with Black Tie, White Noise, which was sort of, he was on a bit of a lull. He'd had a few kind of stinkers, I think, before this. And I wouldn't be mad into Black Tie, White Noise, but I do think it's kind of good album. It's still kind of quintessential Bowie, but with a more electronic drum feel. And he's doing Tin Machine around that era as well, I think, as well. So he had that, still had that kind of rock sound. But it wasn't till Outside in 1995 that he really kind of covered the rock in electronic. And it was aggressive, so to the point it really did become industrial. And the Heart's Filthy Lesson is kind of an industrial song. I think it is anyway. It's funny because Reznor actually did a mix of this song for the single, as far as I know. So by then he did invite Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails on tour for the Outside tour, so this tour. And he had said that he had heard Pretty Hate Machine and he thought it was very interesting, but it must have been when he heard the Downward Spiral that he was like, right, this is the direction I want to go. And he said that he always listens to stuff on the outside or on the periphery. That's where he got the name for this album. So he loves things that are on the outside. You might remember that famous interview where he's been interviewed by MTV and he's like, why do you never play any black hip hop artists? And your man's like, David Bowie was caught by the absolute bollocks. So like Bowie is into new stuff, do you know what I mean? And not just to take from it. So I do think play a bit of it there anyway. I think a lot of people might know the song, but if you're an old school Bowie fan, this did not go down well with old school Bowie fans, especially live. They did not like the live shit at all.
Not in the slightest. Here we go.
There's always a diamond friendly sitting in the Life Hotel. The Heart's Filthy Lesson with her 100 miles to hell. If there was only something between us, if there was only something between us, other than our clothes, something in our sky, something in our sky, something in our blood, something in our sky. Patty? Who's been wearing Lorenzo's clothes?
I really like that piano. The piano sound is great.
Yeah, well, he got that from Trent Reznor. But I have an idea for a podcast that shows you where where Trent Reznor got that as well. Like ramming your finger up and down the piano and plinky plonking it, but doing it in an industrial song is different and it sounds incredible. They worked together on I'm Afraid of Americans in the 90s. It's a fucking great song. For Showgirls, Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls. If you think about all the people that David Bowie worked with, like Lennon, Lou Reed, he worked with Cher and Tina Turner, Luther Vandross and Pet Shop Boys, Lenny Kravitz, Queen, Mick Jagger, we all remember that one.
Jesus.
And Trent Reznor. And then later on he worked with a little bit later he worked with Placebo on Without You I'm Nothing, like a duo version of that. But I really think even though Black Tie, White Noise has a touch of electronic-y in it, it's not as much as this Outside was. That's what I'm trying to get with this. The first time the band went fully electronic. I'm really trying to get that moment to see what it sounds like. And this album is obviously produced by Brian Eno. Hello Space Boy is off this as well. That's a really, really good song as well. Pet Shop Boys version. I don't even like Pet Shop Boys. So did it work? It did commercially, yes. Especially the album after it, Earthlings, in '97 as well, which is along the same lines, but a little bit more fun. Bowie really wears electronic music really, really well.
Yeah,
and it's because he didn't like stumble into it out of necessity. He did it at a good time to make himself a bit more relevant and introduce him to a new generation, a little bit like the way Madonna did with Ray. I like getting William Orbit to do that. Well, there's a reason that she didn't appear on this, because for electronic, she'd already been appeared a couple of episodes ago. So critically, live though, I reckon people going to see live having to sit through Nine Inch Nails, that you're waiting for fucking Suffragette City or Changes.
Rebel or something.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And you sit through fucking I want to fuck you like an animal. and then he's speaking of hot filthy lesson. I can imagine it being very jarring, but that's fucking Bowie, man.
Yeah, I went to see Bowie years ago, and he done a great mix of fucking everything. But he was apparently, he had Jesus, I think it was like the Dandy Warhols open for him or something. He was fine. It was grand. Dandy Warhols fine. But he done he done enough to kind of keep. I went with Meowful. My dad had made a gig in like 30 fucking years, and so it took him to, it was the RDS or Point or something. I don't remember. And there was enough mix of like the stuff for like Earthling and the kind of newer shit that I knew that I was interested in, as well as like the old stuff. And he kept me out fucking happy with his classic hits as well. You know, now that's what I call Bowie. His bits and bobs kept me happy.
Bowie.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a superb fucking gig. I'm glad I got to see him. He was always on my list.
Yeah, so that works for me. Commercially,
Well, I like it a lot.
Work critically, absolutely worked critically. So
definitely.
Yeah, I think it was good. Who is your next one?
My next one, I'm going backwards. I'm taking a band that are known for being an electronic band, and I'm telling you where they came from. And it's the Beastie Boys. And the song is Transit Cop, which is on a compilation called Pollywog Stew or some old bullshit. You'll see there's a couple of these. Yeah, there's a couple of these old Beastie Boys collections that do the rounds. I was actually happy to find one of them on Spotify, because normally this type of stuff isn't allowed on Spotify by the record label. They want to kind of wash away the sins of the past. So the Beastie Boys existed from like 1978 to 1983 as a hardcore punk band from New York. Originally they were called the Young Aborigines, and they changed their name to Beastie Boys after seeing Bad Brains. They wanted to have the BB after seeing Bad Brains, so they changed the name to Beastie Boys. And they were proper fucking I'm gonna play some of it now. You'll hear what it's like. A proper like New York hardcore band, a proper 80s New York hardcore band, like mile a minute guitars, the whole fucking shebang, like no electronic anything in it, you know what I mean?
Right.
The only electronics in here were the fucking amplifiers that were plugged into, and that's how they started. That's how they kind of, I'm not gonna say how they got famous, but that's how they got known in the music scene in New York, and was by hanging around with all these other kind of punk bands and hardcore bands, and they were known for, like, I think Adam York done the fucking he wrote the intro to like John Joseph from Cro-Mags, his biography. He wrote he wrote an intro for, I think, HR's book from Bad Brains as well. Like, he heavily involved in the New York hardcore scene. Every single member of the Beastie Boys, like that's where you'd end up with songs like Heart Attack Man and Sabotage and shit like that. They could actually play instruments because that's how they started. You know,
I didn't come from that, but it's interesting. You're going backwards. So this is a band that did go electronic, but we know them for that.
Exactly, we know them for electronic. There's no point in me playing fucking getting off Hello Nasty or Intergalactic. Everybody knows that. So we're gonna go backwards. I'm gonna play a little bit of Transit Cop just so you get the idea.
I'm interested to hear.
The song itself is 1 minute and 20 seconds, so we're just gonna put the whole
play the whole thing. Less than my samples.
Exactly.
This is another Noise Show. Stay tuned, folks. It's a really good show. We got giveaways, we got guests, and of course, we've got half an hour of the best hardcore in New York, starting with the Beastie Boys.
Yo,
Yeah, I'm glad
Beastie
they went
Boys.
electronic. Glad they went electronic there, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what everybody sounded like in the early
Yeah.
80s. Do you know what I mean? So what happened was they were doing all that kind of stuff. They were getting kind of known for making that New York hardcore kind of malarkey. And they done this kind of novelty song called Cookie Puss. And it was like them kind of messing around with their instruments with like a little fucking drum machine and fucking around and put it out, I think, on like 7-inch on tape. And it actually done particularly well. People were like, that's really good. Like, that's actually very, very good. And they decided there, then they were like, fuck this bleeding guitar fucking bullshit. Let's be MCs. Like, So they were asking around trying to figure out who the fuck can we, who'll be a DJ. And they met this bloke in college called Rick Rubin. And Rick Rubin had an 808 drum machine, a couple of turntables, and he was obsessed with hip hop, and he was obsessed with metal, and he was obsessed with hardcore. I think they had met him originally at a Bad Brains gig, and they found out that one of them went to the same college as him or something like that. So they started going around to his dorm, and he had all these electronics there. So he started messing, and it was around this time Rick Rubin was going to school with Russell Simmons. So they started a record label and signed their own act, Run DMC. And Rick Rubin started making beats for Run DMC at the same time. But he was an official member of the Beastie Boys at the start. So this is...
Oh, was he?
Yeah, 100%. He was like their first DJ. And he bowed out, because Rick Rubin's a fucking weirdo. He bowed out to work on like the second Run DMC album or the first LL Cool J album or something like that. And he like didn't show up to the airport one day while the Beastie Boys were going on tour with Madonna. And... I think he ended up working with Madonna at a later date, but loads of weird fucking... It's just
They dropped any of their kind of misogynistic stuff when they were...
Yeah, they
they
got kicked off the Madonna tour for having these giant inflatable dicks. And they were throwing them out into the crowd and running around hitting each other with these inflatable cocks. But like there was loads of kids going to see Madonna. You know what I mean? So Madonna's record label at the time... Now, afterwards... Madonna's label would sign the Beastie Boys and give the Beastie Boys their own subsidiary.
Grand Royale, wasn't it?
Grand Royale was their label, That was like a subsidiary of her record label, which for the life of me, I can't remember what it was called. Not Maverick. What was it called? Was it Maverick?
It is Maverick.
Mm. So, Grand Royale, that lasted a couple of years. They signed a lot of mad interesting stuff, actually. There's an entire podcast to be done off the bands that they signed. They had some mad shit signed. And so Rick Rubin had all this shit. They went on tour with Madonna. Rick Rubin didn't show up, so they replaced him. They stayed mates with him, and he ended up, he made their first album, which done absolutely insane amount of fucking money. Like, License to Ill sold more than fucking... Like, if Jesus put an album out, License to Ill probably still sell more than it. You know, it's a huge... Beastie Boys went on to become one of the biggest hip-hop groups ever. And not only that, they were like very much trendsetters in the electronic end of hip hop. Like if you listen to their music, it's not just straight bog standard beats with a sample loop, and like they have mad shit going on. They've all sorts of... They brought in like Mixmaster Mike is one of the most famous turntablists of all time. He was doing mad shit, hooking turntables up to guitar pedals and delay pedals and loop decks and all sorts of stuff. So like their music was always very... it was almost like electronic music. You could listen to it by itself. You just got these three guys who were going to rap over it. But you could see they still kept that original kind of heavy music close to their heart, because they did have like fucking... It
does have an aggressive feel about it and a punky feel, obviously.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Certain songs that we know and love.
Exactly.
Afterwards.
So there's like you'll see almost every record had a song like Heart Attack Man or something like that they would throw on there. That would be a little throwback to the fact that like we love guitar, bass, and drums as well, and we want to do fucking heavy, fast music. And then you obviously end up with like Sabotage and stuff like that. Sabotage seems to be like a 50-50 mix of that. Hip hop, funk style, and that kind of hardcore punk, fucking distorted bass and everything going on, you know. But that's the Beastie Boys. Like, I wanted to go backwards. They're famous now for being electronic. But
that's interesting. I'm glad to hear. I really was excited to hear it, and I wouldn't like. It's obviously not an amazingly
not really your bag. It's not my far from my bag either. I just find it interesting that they got kind of well known in one particular genre and like decided.
That's a massive shift. From that to hip hop. Exactly. If they had gone into alt rock from that, I could get it. I could see it. If they had went into black metal, I could see it.
But hip hop, and apparently it's all down to like Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Meeting him at a Bad Brains
That's
gig.
crazy.
He was like, come on, there's a show around the corner. There's this band called Run DMC playing. Let's go and see them.
Yeah.
And that was the end of it then, really. That was the Beastie Boys with Transit Cop. That was the demo version. I don't even know if there's a proper fucking version of it, but that's it. Who was your next one?
Well, the next one's interesting because we might do it together. We might do this. We've both picked the same artist, but for different reasons. And we're finally gonna have it out. Finally gonna have it out. So one of my favorite bands to go electronic is Radiohead, and one of your you don't like that they did that. I do. So we've both picked. There's 2 Radiohead songs here. I picked Everything in Its Right Place from Kid A 2000, which is I think it's the first time I heard the electronic. Obviously, there's another song before that on this. Not Kid A the song, because I really actually don't like Kid A the song, and it's second on the album, and it really throws you completely at the start, and I still don't think it's quite enjoyable to listen to Kid A, but it's just fucking doing my head in now. But the first song off Kid A, not National Anthem. Is it National Anthem?
I can tell you now in a second. How about that? Go-to album. I have Spotify open. So you've got Everything in Its Right Place. Kid
it is
A,
Everything in Its Right Place.
Anthem.
Right. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what it was. I was going to pick National Anthem. I have picked Everything in Its Right Place. I know why. This has no drums in it. I wanted to pick a song with drums in it, but I didn't. So Everything in Its Right Place is the first time that I really heard Radiohead being electronic properly. Yeah. It's not really much of it on OK Computer, the album before. Not really much of it. Not that I can think of just
there's layers, but it's not
layers
of
samples, but it's still very much a fucking.
It's a guitar album.
Alt rock prog masterpiece. It's not even that proggy. It's proggy in theory, not in. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
In execution.
We always talk about that. So, there's no drums in this song. It's a lot of synths and a lot of samples and chopping up words, and it's warm and it's lovely and it's fucking a brilliant album opener.
I don't mind this song so much. It doesn't bother me. You hear banging in the background. It's my chair that's disintegrating from underneath me. Every time I move, something falls off it or it clunks. It's my new chair as well. I don't mind the song. I don't hate it.
All right, but. This is the first time that they were using like kind of more processed guitar sounds, but mixed with samples and loops, and they were manipulating the records completely with Pro Tools and Cubase, and Tom York chopped up his words and was reassembling them, stuff like that. They were going to do a double album, but they kept it to 2 separate albums with Amnesiac, which is also a fucking brilliant album. Actually, sometimes prefer Amnesiac to Kid A. Now, I didn't like Kid A the first time I heard it. I'm not going to lie to you. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting, another OK Computer, and they went completely. This is one of the most highly anticipated albums of all time. This is more highly anticipated than Chinese Democracy, because Chinese Democracy had been forgotten and
lost its shine.
The fucks were gone. Were all gone.
There was an article online a couple of weeks ago about Kid A, and I think the title of the article was like the biggest left turn in musical history.
It is though.
I was like,
OK Computer OK Computer wasn't that much of a left turn. It was more of a giant leap ahead. Yes. But OK Computer or Kid A was a complete right turn. It's all started when someone said to them, "You have to do the Bends too now because the Bends sold like 10 million, whatever." Yeah, and they went doing the opposite. Yeah, so they went and did. Talk about that album. And this time they went, how are you going to top that? We'll take a turn. Now I do think this the stuff you could make an album with Kid A and Amnesia that stands up to OK Computer. I think you could chop the 2 of them albums up. I genuinely do. But it's a beautiful and complex album, Kid A. It's just, for me at the time, it wasn't. The first time listening to it, I was really disappointed. I was listening to it in college, and I had it on like a mini disc or whatever, and I was like, "Oh no, no, it's not. I don't get it. I guess some of it, like, and all that." But I will say this, right? As much as I love it now, the actual electronic elements that they use, the samples and stuff like that, they weren't very interesting, and they haven't aged well. Like some of the drum beats, like man, that's people like fucking DJ Shadow, Aphex Twin, miles ahead doing all that before, and you have to affect the stuff way more to make it your own. Like Boards of Canada do mad stuff like that, and that doesn't sound dated at all. I don't think.
Yeah, lot of stuff in Kid A that's kind of stock, you know.
There is, unfortunately. Like, there just is. And
Yeah.
I still love it, but when their foray into it, it was a bit of a fucking misstep in terms of what they picked. They kind of felt, they did it too fast. They jumped into it without knowing. They were like, oh, this sounds deadly. It sounds like Radiohead doing this. And what they were doing with the voices and guitars was ahead of its time, I think. It really was. But yeah, some of the elements, electronic-wise, didn't massively age well. But in saying that, I still think it's an absolute whopper album.
Yeah, like I said, this song is fine. You know what I mean? This when I first listened to Kid A, and this is like I said, the first song, I'm like, okay, all right, that's a cool intro, because the whole song sounds like it's about to start, and it never does, right? So I thought, all right, that's kind of cool.
You see, it does in its own way. By the end of it, the layers, if you listen to the subtle layers, they're coming up. If I know what you're saying, if the drums don't come in or if a big bass doesn't come in, it feels like it doesn't.
Yeah, I just felt like there was just an instrument lacking, but I was willing to let it go because I thought the first song might be like a little kind of, you know, just a piece of music that might be kind of cool. And maybe we'll start getting into the fucking the real Radiohead stuff now in the next one. And
so look, this is I'll mention songs along the way that I think. You see, you haven't quite let the cat out of the bag that you don't like the electronic stuff yet. In case people were wondering. Songs. Yeah, go on.
For me,
let's do your bit. Let's do your bit now.
Yeah, well, for me, Radiohead have 2 albums, right? And it's the Bands, which I love dearly, and it's OK Computer, which we've said 1,000 times is probably the best album ever made. And for me, Kid A, when it came out, I was fucking dying for it. Like, people need to understand. I probably said this 1,000 times. People need to understand how much of an OK Computer fiend I am. I own OK Computer on every single format it was ever released on. Like, I have it multiple times on CD, multiple times on cassette. I fucking hunted down a mini disc original version of it. I have every version of it ever released on vinyl, including the big giant box with the art book that comes with the extra fucking cassette of all the mini disc recordings they had, because they had a mini disc recorder recording 24 hours a day in the studio. I've got that stuff on cassette. I have the OK Not OK fucking blue version. I've got the OK Computer remastered version, have an original press. I've got singles off it. I even have the VHS that compiles all the videos off OK Computer. I have every version of everything that's ever come out for OK Computer. The only thing I don't have is the floppy disk that they sent out. I have 2 things. The Walkman that they glued shut and put an OK Computer sticker on. They sent that out to like Mojo magazine and stuff like that. They made an OK Computer Walkman, and there was a floppy disk that had an OK Computer screensaver on it and the songs in MIDI format to play on your sound card. And they're available. You can for the mini disc in particular, you can find copies of it anywhere. I just haven't bothered me whole because I don't even have a floppy disk fucking reader at the moment. But
how many times have you listened to Kid A?
I'd say I listened to Kid A 10, 12 times.
Really?
Yeah, since it came out. Yeah. I listened to it again about 6-7 months ago. What I like to do is if I'm walking home from work or walking to work, I don't like listening to stuff that I know. I like listening to stuff that I either have a problem with or I don't know. So I'd always go into like Spotify's new releases, or there's nothing good in there. I'll find something that I've had trouble with in the past. Like I've done that with like Type O Negative like a couple of years ago. So I didn't dislike Type O Negative. I just didn't know a lot about them. They just passed me by. Yeah. So I decided I'm going to go down this route, and I started with Carnivore and maybe way up to Type O. And I was like, fucking hell, I missed the boat on this. This is amazing. I'm all over this. This is great.
Type O are incredible.
Yeah,
just incredible.
I am. So I've done this with Kid A, with fucking Amnesiac or whatever, and I've done.
I remember making you. Actually,
you made me a playlist of all the best.
Before we talk about that, I forgot we
put everything in its right play. I'm gonna play that.
Yeah, because I forgot to.
Yeah, because we've got 2 samples to play here. One that I like and one I think is garbage. But this is the one I kind of like. This is your one here. Right, so there's everything that's right place.
There's a drum beat in there. Actually, there's a bass drum there.
Kinda, yeah.
Subtly in there.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to put forward the argument with that song. It's part of an album. Yeah.
Like, okay, so fucking hell, you've got what's your lineup? It's OK Computer 1997, Kid A 2000, Amnesiac 2001, In Rainbows 2007, King of Limbs 2011.
No, there's Hail to the Thieves before King of Limbs.
Where is it? Hail to the... Oh, it is. Yeah, I never wrote that down. Then a Moonshaped Pool in 2016, right? And like, there's stuff on Moonshaped Pool that was whatever. It's okay. It's not great. It's whatever.
It's not. It's like their third worst album, to put it that way. Something like that. You know what I mean? It's not. I still think it's a fucking brilliant album. And to be Radiohead's, like, I'd put it ahead of Pablo Honey, and I'd put it ahead of King of Limbs, which I still don't think is a great album. It's fine.
Pablo Honey almost doesn't come into the equation. Like, it's so different than generic.
But to be a Radiohead album, you've got to be really, really good. Even though I'm not mad about King of Limbs. Apart from that, I understand the direction that the band took. Like, it's appetizing for people, and especially from the Bends onwards, the fact that they got a little bit quirky, and that kind of whetted people's appetites. Like, people just assumed that Radiohead were going to do really good music that was going to be a little bit different every time. They'd almost reinvent themselves. Yeah.
But what annoyed me is that they abandoned this style of music that they kind of stumbled across with something like OK Computer. Like the follow-up album has to be like, if you were after banging out one of the greatest albums of all time, like we said, that extreme left or right turn, whatever you want to call it, like that's too jarring for someone like me who is almost obsessive about something. So I would have been, I know, like, Hail to the Thief had a bit more guitar and went back to those roots.
Yeah, Hail to the Thief is a bit more of a rock album. It's phenomenal as well.
But like the jump from Pablo Honey to the Bends seems like almost a natural progression. Like, it's got this, it's still guitar-y. They just said, there's more to this than just,
like I said,
it's a
joint jump forward. It's not a jump left or right.
Exactly. And then, like, kind of Bends to OK, it's like they just turned it up to 11. They were like, okay, but we're allowed to do a little bit more experimentation. Like, we've done a bit of that on like you hear stuff like Street Spirit. Like, that's very close to a lot of stuff that's on OK as well. You know, you got your No Surprises and shit.
And you could put Karma Police on the Bends.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, loads of that kind of shit. So I was mad excited when Kid A came out. Like, now my thing with Kid A was that I was so excited that I ignored everything. Like, I didn't. If a video came on or was played on the radio, I turned it off. Like, I was like going to absolutely gorge myself on this on release day, and like, I came home, I bought it. I don't even own it anymore. I threw it out. Honest to God, I threw it out. I came home, put it on, and I was about as disappointed as a Metallica fan when Loud came out. Like, that's the level of disappointment that I felt. I kept waiting for the album to start. I kept waiting for, like, the songs to happen, because it just sounded like a collection of lads messing in the studio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, experimenting. Now, I don't think, here's the thing, I don't think any of this is shy. It almost feels like they should have just changed the name of the band to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was such a turn that it's almost, whenever I hear the turn like that, it's almost disrespectful to the stuff they've done before it. Because it seems to me like they feel like they outgrew it. But like, that's all kids' music with guitars and all, G chords and all. You meant, play a D, you sap. You know what I mean? That's what I think in my head. And I see them in the studio, like, plugging synthesizers into fucking their arseholes and fucking speaking in the microphones to get weird noises out of it. And then what happens as Amnesiac comes out and In Rainbows comes out, it just starts turning into the Tom York soundtrack show where the Tim.
I don't know. No, I don't think Amnesiac makes this album make way more sense. Amnesiac has a few more rocker songs on it, like slightly rockier. Like, in fact, this bridges the gap. Amnesiac should really bridge the gap between OK Computer.
Maybe it jarred me so hard when Kid A came out that It turned me to shy. And after that, every time a new album come out, I'd like, fingers crossed, here we go. Now, there's definitely songs on some of the other albums that are fucking fantastic, don't get me wrong. And there's even like quarters of albums that I enjoyed. Maybe, like I said, if you take all those other albums and strip out the best bits, you'd end up with like a double album for me that maybe could come close to OK Computer, but it's so watered down by this fucking, there's so many of these songs that it's just literally a synthesizer making some weird noises and Thom Yorke mumbling and moaning, that when Thom Yorke came out with his fucking solo stuff, it sounded identical to everything, almost everything I'd heard from Radiohead in the last 20 years, where it was like, it's just this fucking droning fucking, I'm waiting on someone to die of a heroin overdose in the music video or in the movie that he's made this music for. You know what I mean? It's I'm all for depressing, but this is almost like he's depressed and he might kill himself.
I can understand that. I think that's a fair argument to make. I think you've explained it well. I don't think people can really.
Like I said, I don't hate it. It's just not what I wanted, and because it's not what I wanted, I feel like I just shouldn't. And I've tried so many times because I want to love it, and I want it to be more of this music.
So, what garbage song did you pick?
I picked Full Stop off a Moonshaped Pool.
That's hard. You picked an interlude song in the middle of one of their Knockray albums, but go on.
Yeah, I'm going to play a bit of it now because there is some.
I actually like Full Stop.
Yeah, I'm gonna bang it on here now. Hang on.
Try to live full stop.
There, I picked the part of the song that actually has instruments in it.
Deadly, that's a great song.
It's not really.
It is.
It doesn't.
I think it is. I just loved it. It's pacing along, and it's that line "cut in your full stop" is fucking brilliant. That's a great lyric, and the backing vocals slightly kind of soaring up behind it, and it's the bass line.
It just doesn't do fuck all for me. Again, it's aimless, directionless, meandering. It sounds like a band tuning their instruments and like the drums in the background just doing the snare shuffle. It probably is a loop. Like they might play it live, but I'd almost guarantee you that when they record it, it's just a sample. Yeah. Like the bass is kind of audible. There's a guitar in the left. I have my headphones on. There's a guitar in the left channel doing. And I
remember I made you a list. I think I called it Life After OK Computer. I had like Idiotech, I might be wrong, You and Whose Army. I think I put 2 and 2 equals 5 on it. There. I even put Lotus Flower on it, and I think it's one of the only songs I listened to off King of Limbs. And Identica off that last album as well, I think as well. But yeah,
like I said, there's definitely a couple of songs on. There's 1 or 2 songs on every album that are acceptable, but I find the albums to be incredibly padded by art skill wankery. And
yes, fair enough.
I have an issue with music that doesn't have a direction, and if it just sounds like the first 10 seconds of the song could be the last 10 seconds of the song, and nothing happens in between the first 10 seconds and the last 10 seconds. If it doesn't bring me on a fucking emotional journey, if I don't feel like they put the work into it. Now, they might have put so much work into it, it sounds effortless, but this to me sounds effortless. It literally sounds like lads, like an orchestra warming up before the fucking conductor taps the stand. You know what I mean? Almost all of it sounds like that. Where the keyboard player is just like, fucking, what's that button do? And Tom York is fucking with his gammy eye, looking for a bag of chips, going, or whatever. And that's what all those albums sound like to me, bar little exceptions to the rule,
Right.
where maybe they're the songs where one of the lads had a riff or a little melody floating around in his head for the last 40 years, and now he finally has something to put it
Well,
in.
yeah, like some of the songs off of Moonshade Pool have been going since OK Computer.
Yeah, I believe that.
And like Born the Witch has been going around since Kid A.
Yeah, but Born the Witch is all right. I just wish it was better. Do you know what I mean? That's how I'm going to.
God, I love that song.
That's how I'm going to boil it all down. Right? Is that it's all grand. I just wish it was better. How about that?
Fair
How
enough.
about that as a statement? Again, I don't piss on it. I'm not shitting on it.
Yeah.
Jipping on it or vomiting on it. All the bodily functions. I just wish, for me, it was better, because there's not a single song on the Bends or on OK Computer that wouldn't be the best song on anybody else's album. Put it that way.
Well,
And
that's it, folks. We have finally had a Radiohead chat. We said we were going to.
I'm sweating now.
Have we ever done it before? We've touched on it, but we've never really
We've
got
talked
into it.
an awful lot about that one particular album, and we probably tapped on it, but we never put two of them together, and we never
gone at it. Yeah.
had a crack at it. So we should move on. So you've another one next. Who have you got next?
Yes, I have Paradise Lost. Actually, I'm going to ask you to do something that's not too much fucking
Yes.
hassle. Can you play a song called Rotting Misery by Paradise Lost? If it's not going to fuck up the flow
No.
thing, just you can do that while I continue on. So, Paradise Lost released an album called Host in 1999. And this song is called In All Honesty. And I have to let people, it's on the Lost Paradise album, the one you're looking for there.
Okay.
It's the album before that. So I know it's done there. Sorry. Yeah, it's on that one there. Yeah. So I need, in case people don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, you have to hear what Paradise Lost sounded like when they first came out.
Okay, I'm going to play that now, right?
Yeah, just jump into the middle of that, anywhere in the middle of that.
All right,
This
going to hit
is-
it.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you. Sorry, I threw you off with that. I should let you know I was going to do that. That's not it. It's still yeah. This is 1990. Skip ahead a little bit there, actually. Right, still much the same. Right, anyway, so stop on for a second. That's the.
You get the idea.
So, yeah, you get the idea. It's just I needed to let people know this. I was kind of halfway through while we were talking about radio. I was like, "Fuck, are people going to know the difference between Paradise Lost?" A lot of them will. A lot of people will now. A lot of people listen to podcasts will. But I just need to know. Now that's 1990. They are a sort of death doom metal band, and it's heavy. And Gothic was a good album as well. After as well in a similar vein.
I
You know, it's
loved
more Gothic
Paradise
rock.
Lost as a kid. Loved them.
Yeah, man.
And
they're fucking-
Well, I
Yeah.
went back about 3 years ago. It was one of those bands I remembered from my youth. And I was walking home again, and I put them on. And I always remember the day I was re-listening to Gothic, because I nearly got hit by a bus. I got hit by the bus to Carlow. And
Right. Oh, what a terrible bus to get hit with.
the worst bus. They have 0 cases of COVID at the moment, so fair play to them. I nearly got hit by the bus to Carlow. It turned to go up Amiens Street, and I wasn't paying attention. And of course, I walked across a little fucking subsection, and the fucking thing had to jam on the brakes. And all I remember is this giant fucking 6 letters Carlow whizzing towards me. But I wasn't as impressed with it now as I was as a kid, but it's still fine.
Yeah, no, I prefer another album that we'll get into now in a minute. So that's the start of Paradise Lost, and they're sort of well respected English death doom metal band. It's mad. They've gone through a polarizing kind of career because they've had a stint with this music. They've gone in a sort of gothic rock thing with the Draconian Times album, which I absolutely fucking love. And that's touching on more of a Type O Negative kind of piano is introduced into it. They've gone for a grungier alt rock one with Believe in Nothing. But then this is the album I want to talk about, 99. So only 9 years later than the song you just played there, they are playing a song called In All Honesty. And if you play it there, I don't know if you have it ready. I think I might have. Yeah.
I have it ready, yeah.
Just so it's fresh in people's heads before I get into that, the difference in 9 years can do. But moving between gothic rock and grunge into this.
Sit alone and celebrate good times of change. Sit alone, anticipate great times of change. But they are washed away with laughter as we wait to perish, turn to ashes, things we've all gone through. Sit alone and celebrate good times of change. Sit alone, annihilate all words of praise. When it all seems to spell disaster, words of wisdom have no meaning in all honesty. It's just fiction, your religion, no apology.
Incredible difference, like.
So that's a band that had just heard Ultra by Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. There's another band, Norwegian band called Ulver, that kind of follow a lot of the same patterns. It almost mirrors what Paradise Lost had. They started out like a kind of black folk metal kind of band
Yeah.
that turned into gothic stuff, that turned into ambient, and now they've released a synth pop album. It's way more synth poppy. It's actually really good as well this year. I don't know if right. So there's bands like Aerosmith and Machine Head who straight up copy what's happening around them.
Yes.
Like Machine Head especially,
Famous.
they,
for it.
cop- they just copy it, and they don't always do it well, and that's why they become sort of a bit of a laugh stock sometimes. And then randomly they'll just belt out 3 in a row really good metal albums.
Do you remember Rob Flynn just started wearing like Adidas tracksuits and all when Korn were big?
That's it. He fell into the thing, and Aerosmith did grunge.
Yeah.
Now, that worked out quite well for them. Now that's fallen in. I don't know if Paradise Lost aim for what they do, because they did the grunge thing around like Alice in Chains era. They were sort of moving into Believe in Nothing, and after this even there was an album called fucking hell, what's the name? I can't remember. I just think it's either a bold move or else they were trying. I think that they admit a few times that they were a little bit lost. Paradise Lost were lost. They were lost. They've gone back now recently to do albums like Plague Within and Medusa, which is a more around the Draconian Times kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Gothic, not quite as heavy as like Gothic the album and stuff like that. But I find it mad. I can't figure out whether they just chanced their arm trying it, or are they one of those bands that are like sponges. When they're in the middle of writing an album, everything around them just gets sucked in, and it's
Hard
sort
to
of
tell.
just,
I mean, you can.
yeah.
I think there's whenever a band change tack like that, like maybe there's something to prove for them. Like maybe the singer's like, I don't have to be growling and grunting. Like I can actually sing.
Yeah,
but that's not going to suit our original style of fucking doom metal or whatever. So let's try
Yeah.
something a little bit different. Let's see if we can make something dark and doomy, but without those classical instruments. We'll keep them
Yeah.
to hand, but let's see what we can fuck with in the studio. I would assume
And
that
it-
most of that stuff is written in the studio anyway. To be
Oh,
honest.
this album sounds like it was written in the studio. Really does
Yeah.
it, and it's mad. Like they're wearing like shorts and jeans, and they've got shorter hair, and the album cover looks a bit like.
There's
No, like I don't care about this. I don't
Yeah.
care really that
I
much.
know,
But all I can think about is they're moron. They're not. Paradise Lost fans aren't typically morons at all, but I know a lot of fucking heads go, "Oh, fucking shit." They thought Draconian Times was too poppy,
yeah,
like let alone this house stuff or believe in nothing.
yeah.
And but the problem with those people is they're going to be wanting the same thing ever. They want the same dinner and they want the same metal albums, and they want the Brussels to be open forever, even though they don't go and have for drinking there.
Yeah.
They want to be there, and when they go into Brussels, they don't want their kids to. There to be kids in there sitting in the seats that they used to sit in 1994.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
the
mean?
seat
Like,
should be empty with their name on it.
yeah, with their name on it. Yeah. Like so whenever I hear people complaining about Paradise Lost, Host and stuff like that album, I'm just like, fucking, I don't care. I like it. I like that album. I don't think it's groundbreaking. I don't even think it's very, very good. I think it's a good album, but I like it. There's a difference between something you know is not great and I like it. So yeah, I think that was massively influenced with Depeche Mode. Like I said, it's not anything super, but I do think that amount of the element of the electronic they brought in for Host, especially, absolutely threw people. So did it work? Commercially, people thought it was all right. Critically, people thought it was all right. Commercially, I think it was all right. I don't know. I can't remember. And everyone I know, all the metal were like, fucking stupid. And it actually made me like it more. So that was Paradise Lost with Host from. No, sorry, not Host. In all honesty, from Host, 1999. They weren't happy with the mixing and mastering. So I remember in 2009, or 19 maybe, on the anniversary, it was remixed and remastered. I don't
Interesting.
think much of a difference with this. Who's that's Paradise Lost. Who's your next one?
My next one is very strange, actually. Something I only discovered recently. I didn't know it existed, and it's Neil Young with the song "Computer Age" off the album "Trans" from 1982.
I've only heard about this, and I've never delved into it at all.
I never heard of it until this week. I'm not a massive Neil Young fan. Never really was. He's fine, but
oh man, look at my life.
All them songs are fine.
Not like you.
Yeah,
that's a great song.
Yeah, like all the big bangers are fucking grand, you know. So Neil Percival Young is born in 1945. He's Canadian, but he moves to Los Angeles in the early 1960s, joining Buffalo Springfield.
Did not know he was Canadian. There you go.
Yeah. I knew he was Canadian for some reason. I don't know how the fuck. I must have read that somewhere.
I didn't even know he was in Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, he was in Buffalo Springfield, yeah. That's why he moved to America.
You can't have a Canadian Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, he actually, you know what I found out as well? He married Daryl Hannah in 2018 as well.
18?
2018, he married Daryl Hannah. How mad is that? I didn't know that.
That's
either.
like, she was one of my crushes.
Was she? Daryl Hannah?
Yeah.
Splash, wasn't it? Was it Splash?
Yeah. Splash,
and Kill Bill with the one eye.
Yeah.
So 1982, fucking Neil Young is a pretty big solo artist at this stage. He just left his record label, Reprise Records, and he just signed with Geffen. So his contract, he had one of these fucking 1 in a million record deals.
Was it a rolling contract?
No, he was guaranteed $1 million per album. Right, that was just part of his contract. Was the minute I hand you an album, you hand me $1 million, and then I still get me royalties and all this type of bullshit after
still get the royalties after.
Yeah. So
and I wonder what they get. Like, would it be paid for in the studio before you ever? Would have been like, sorry, in advance is what I'm talking about.
It might have been an advance, or it might have been a 50-50. Who knows? Whichever way it worked, Geffen were like, fucking, we have to have Neil Young. £1 million. I'm sure there was something there. We didn't have to pay it back if he didn't make it either. And he had complete creative control, 100%. Like, didn't matter what he gave them. They
could fucking young, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have to give out. Now, before in the early 80s, he spent the first couple of years of the 80s working with his son Ben, who was born with cerebral palsy. So he had he was doing all these kind of training exercises and like kind of rehab stuff for his son.
Oh, right.
And apparently a lot of it was like incredibly like monotonous and repetitive. It was just, you know, whatever, walking, sitting up, fucking whatever stuff you have to do in kind of a rehab situation with a young child that has cerebral palsy. And he kind of took a little bit of time off, and that's all he done. He kept it real quiet as well.
That's awesome.
And
he kept it not awesome that he had to do that, but it's awesome that
exactly, yeah. So apparently when he was making this album, they went in, they made the entire album, him and the what's the name of the band, the Wild Horse Band, or whatever the fuck you call it.
Yeah.
Crazy Horse. And
Crazy Neil Young and Crazy
Horse, yeah. So the band is Crazy Horse. So he had all them in, and they wrote the album, recorded the whole shebang. And somewhere near the end of it, someone gave him a Synclavier synthesizer and a vocoder. And he was like, this thing's absolutely outrageous. One of the first polyphonic synthesizers, like a really early one.
There's some people call it a Synclavier.
Synclavier.
No, they don't. I just made that
up. And a vocoder as well. So apparently what he done was that during the day, when he was finished doing the training exercises with his son, he'd go back into the studio and he'd plug in the synthesizer and he'd see what he could take out of the classical instrumentation and replace with the noises he could make with this early synth, this polyphonic synth. So eventually,
that's weird. Like I do that in a weird way.
Yeah,
I write all my stuff on with crappy synth on a computer, knowing that I can bring it back to import that file into the big beast and change all them because they're not staying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Placeholders. But apparently the band didn't notice. Right, the band thought like, oh, that's my guitar bit, it's done. I'm finished with the record, whatever. You know. So he was going back in the night, not opening his fucking mouth. And at the end of it, just when the band got together for mixing and stuff like that, they walked in and they pressed play. And they were like, where's all of the song that we wrote? And he's like, no, it's grand, it's better like this. And they're like, what do you mean it's better like this? I was like, no, it's cool, man. Have you seen this?
So there's actually, realistically, in theory, a proper rock version of this.
Maybe, somewhere.
Like it's not really recorded, but like in theory, if you could go back in the past and take all those.
Oh, yes, somewhere. There's a real version of this album.
Mad. I'd say some fans are going mad about that.
I'd say so. Bastard. Now, apparently around this time...
That's a shitty thing to do, man.
Oh, it is a real shitty thing. So apparently what he was listening to so much Kraftwerk at the time. He was like, these
definitely, yeah.
are fucking nailing it. Like, this is absolutely incredible. Like, this is the future of music.
Yeah.
So he released
every single person on this list has said, this is the future.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now, when this album came out, even though he was guaranteed $1 million and he had complete creative control, Geffen Records took him to court they brought him to court and sued him for deliberately creating an uncommercial and unrepresentative work, is what they sued him for.
But didn't they release it?
They did, right? They thought that because it was Neil Young, maybe he just knew more than them. Right?
Oh, you can't do that. You can't release it and then say it's shit.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't do particularly well, right? So actually, believe it or not, some magazines that were doing reviews and stuff were like, this is amazing. Like, never heard anything like this. Like, this is crazy to hear like Neil Young embracing fucking the future. Like, this is incredible. And then some of them are like, where is the fucking old man looking, man?
I love that it's a whole album because I found a few tracks. I found oh Jesus, some project with Eric Clapton and your man from Climby Fisher.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember what it was called, Renaissance or something mad like that. No, and it was just garbage. It's not on Spotify though. And then Cat Stevens has one song that's just electronic. Right.
Yeah,
but the big one, the whole album,
the whole album of it.
Juice.
Yeah. The big one around this time would have been the Billy Idol album, Cyberpunk. And,
right.
I was going to put it in here, but Blind Boy covered it a couple of weeks ago. And
okay, what's that about?
Not stepping on his toes. So apparently, in the early 80s, Billy Idol, like, he broke his bleeding leg skiing or so. He done something. Right. He was stuck at home recuperating, and someone gave him like an early Apple Macintosh that had like a copy of fucking Cubase or Pro Tools or Logic or some early kind of
GarageBand, Fruity Loops.
Yeah, exactly. Had some like OG fucking digital audio workstation software on it that had built-in synthesizers and drum machines, and he was like, "This is absolutely incredible." And someone
did he say the words?
This is the future. Yeah. Now, apparently, what he had done was I have to look this up here for a second. Really. So he had called. I'll have to tweet this in here. He had called the album cyberpunk, right? Which was a term that came from was a Neuromancer by William Gibson. And, And so apparently someone had
will we wait on that actual game? So
on the actual game, yeah. So someone had explained the idea behind Neuromancer to Billy Idol, and he was like, "That's really good. Like that's a great idea." And he calls them cyberpunks, does he? Does he call them cyberpunks? And like, yeah, cyberpunks, Billy. That sounds great. Yeah, exactly. So he was like, "I'll be a cyberpunk." So off he went, and his whole idea was that he was going to bring his like kind of, because obviously he came up being in fucking Generation X's and punk bands and shit like this, and it's still, even though he was a kind of a pop act or a pop rock act, he became like a lampoon of the punk scene with the spiky hair and the bullet belts.
Like, kind of I love it, but it's not really.
It's not really. It's a lampoon. It's a piss take.
Plastic punk.
Yeah, exactly.
Still fucking deadly.
But his roots are most definitely in the real punk scene. Like some of those Generation X songs are fucking fantastic. But he decided like this would be the new frontier. Like this would be like the punks a couple of years ago. DIY and everything and all this type of shit. I can do that now with this computer in me gaff. So the record label were just like happy to have fucking Billy Idol. He was at this stage like huge. Happy broken. To have him but broken in half, essentially having him making some sort of music. He was like, "I'm working on a new album." He didn't say that he was like had a keyboard, you know what I mean? Not even a synthesizer. I don't think he had like a tappy keyboard. And he made this whole album, and the whole album's like 20 songs. But someone had explained to him the whole Neuromancer thing, so he named the album Cyberpunk just because he liked the name of it. And he kind of I think there's a song on there called like Neuromancer and all, like, and he was giving interviews. It's garbage. But he even when he's giving interviews, they're like, what's the story with this album? He goes, William Gibson, Neuromancer, Cyberpunk. And they're like, "Oh yeah, what's that about?" It's about punks, cyberpunks. He didn't even read the book. No, he didn't at all. He literally just kept saying stuff like, "The future of punk, and I'm a punk," and William Gibson, Neuromancer, like in the future with computers.
Like, you know the book.
Yeah, exactly. He kept saying this. He kept saying this.
Book, haven't you? Don't question me with the book. You've read
exactly. That came out, I think, roughly around the same time as this Neil Young thing. So there was definitely like an undercurrent for like big, large artists who maybe, now here I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. I think that maybe, just fucking maybe, these cunts were so money hungry in the early 80s that they thought if they could bang an album together on a computer themselves, they wouldn't have to pay for fucking session musicians. Yeah. They wouldn't have to pay their band. Like when it came to going on tour, maybe they just have a cunt with a fucking computer they plugged in and pressed play. You know what I mean? They're thinking, how can I shave all these points off the shit that I need to give to people? Like if I don't even, Billy Idol's there, I don't even need a recording studio, man. I have a pair of headphones. You know what I mean?
Legs.
Yeah, I don't even need legs. Like one hand will do it. And like that's all he done. So I honest to God think that there was some sort of like kind of where we are now, where someone like me and you can make shit in our fucking gaffs, and like depending on how much time you want to put into it, like you can, if you want to put 2 years into fucking messing around with it, you can get it sounding pretty fucking decent, you know, and for minimal costs, like you can get it up to like a really good spec. But this is the early 80s. Like, stuff is fucking garbage. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's dirt. Yeah. It doesn't sound good. Kraftwerk sounded good because the lads were, like, pulling cables out of ceilings and plugging it into the fucking national grid. And, like, it wasn't just a lad with a keyboard. They'd fucking tons of keyboards and machines and reel-to-reel machines running backwards. And, like, they were embracing actual plugged-in technology. The rest of these cunts had one keyboard and maybe a computer. You know what I mean?
And no one to tell them that sounds really crap.
That's shite, man. Just because you've never heard it before doesn't mean it sounds good. You know what I mean? If me and you invented a new instrument tomorrow that was like, you stick a fucking party popper up a lizard's arse and put a microphone into its mouth and let it go, and that's the new instrument. Just because we think it sounds cool doesn't mean the rest of the world is. You know what I mean? Nobody told them this. I'm going to play a bit of this Computer Age, right?
Yeah, I want to hear this.
You have to hear this. It's fucking mental. Have a listen to this. That synthesizer sounds really nice, like. But
the mix is gorgeous. It's really well produced.
It's real creamy, isn't it?
It's some of it is like swamps too much in reverb, and that's coming from me. I put fucking reverb. When I bring stuff into the studio to the producer, it just takes all them reverbs off. It just masks my either voice or fucking. Yeah, I love reverb, but no one should use it. That's nice though. Actually, you can tell you can imagine that being played on like dirty brown guitars with little chords, chords and brown shields.
Yeah, 100%. Like Neil Young, that's Neil Young. It's just a robotic trans Neil Young from a Computer Age.
That sounds like someone just putting it into MIDI.
It does. It sounds like ELO playing Neil Young without the fucking orchestra. Is what it sounds.
Or else one of those guitar tablature software things going.
Exactly. Do you remember those guitar tabs that would play guitar tab programs that would play?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Trying to learn a song.
Guitar Pro. Yeah, Guitar Pro. What I used to do was sometimes when I was with that band that did covers.
Yeah,
the band, and I would take tablature. Sometimes they would put the keyboard tablature in. It'd actually be quite good. I would take the MIDI, bring it back in, and learn it just through the MIDI that was on the thing because I don't know how to pick and learn bits on keyboards. But yeah, that stuff is good.
So that's Neil Young with Computer Age off the album Translate. Even the album cover is deadly.
It is. It's really it's one of those looks like spray.
Something's on the side of a fucking rapist's van. Is what it looks like. Airbrushed fucking van.
Yeah.
Something my Elfley used to do in the 80s. Fucking airbrushing barbarians onto people's vans.
The album's called Trans. Literally J.K. Rowling's least favourite Neil Young album.
Exactly. Yeah. But the song's called Computer Age. It's worth a listen because it's really fucking strange. It's you can tell it's Neil Young, and you can tell that it was definitely written on traditional instruments, and he just got paid his bollocks and decided I'm just going to have a bit of fun with this one because they're giving me $1 million for it anyway. It was his 12th album, and it came out in 1982. So,
12th.
Yeah, 12th.
And that was 82. Jesus.
82.
Yeah,
82. So who's your last one? Is it? It is your last one, yeah.
This has been my last one, yeah. Okay, and it's Perry Farrell. Did You Forget? Now this is a weird one because he's never not been electronic on his own, but this is the lead singer of Jane's Addiction. Jane's Addiction are not electronic. They're absolutely not. Well, the later stuff maybe had touch of it, but only because of this kind of shit. So I'm a massive, massive Jane's Addiction fan, and I think they possibly were too unique to be up there with the greats, and in the sense that there's some unique bands. Like Queen are up there; they're unique, but there's something about Jane's Addiction. I don't know what it is. I think they're like the bridge between Alice in Chains and Aerosmith.
Mm.
But a lot of people will say, please burn that bridge and never say that again. Because, you know, but I love Aerosmith. It's the second time we've mentioned Aerosmith in the podcast already. But they have that, they have punk, they've got grunge, and they've got sort of glammy kind of swagger. I love Jane's Addiction, man. I just, do you know what? Ritual de la Habitual is my second favorite album of all time after OK Computer.
You've said
That's
that.
how much. That's him. Yeah,
you love it.
That's how much I love that, and I also love.
He loves it.
He loves it. Ask him, does he love it? Go on, ask him.
He fucking loves it.
I also love Perry Farrell's band Porno for Pyros. I really like them as well.
I always like them as well. Yeah.
So when his first his first solo album, this isn't his first solo album, but it fucking is. He had one called Rev, which had a kind of industrial, kind of electro-y drum beat, and then the rest of it was just covers. So not really. It was a money spinner. Rev was. I'm not mad into it. This is his first proper solo album, and it's called Songs Yet to Be Sung, from 2001. Just give it a bash there. I was shocked by this album when I first bought it. I heard the single, and I thought, okay, but this song is the one where I went, holy shit, what the fuck is going on?
I'll give it a blame here.
Yeah.
Did you forget?
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's mad. There's loads of electronic all over it, and I really, really, really like it. It's not an amazing album, but I love it, and it's solidified as a great album in my head because of nostalgia and me listening to it. But I remember buying it. I got it in HMV the day it came out. Actually, I had to. They weren't going to get it in. I had to. This is one of the ones I had to order.
Special order, John.
To have special order to have it ready. Yeah. I just forgot about that, and it was mad expensive. It was like over
one of them imports.
£20 or something like that.
Yeah, them fucking import. Yeah. Remember import CDs? You thought you were like the holy grail. You're going to find something fucking amazing. 99% of the time, it's just some garbage compilation in Japanese.
But like the first time I heard this, I was like, didn't know what to make of it because I liked electronic music at the time. Obviously, at the time, like I was into the Chemical Brothers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I was ready to mix the beans and the peas on the plate without being asked. Do you know what I mean? Like, but the more I listened to it, the more I really, really liked it. And this isn't even the best example of a lead singer of a huge band going out and directly into electronic music. Because for me, that'd be Ian Brown, and I was going to pick Ian Brown for this. But I figured, I think I've picked Ian Brown before, and I'll pick him again. I'll never get to pick Perry Farrell's solo stuff again, so I'll use this opportunity to get it in there. The album still has like the Jane's Addiction guys. Well, the Jane's Addiction guys at the time, I think Eric Avery had left, so Martin Lenoble there, Stephen Perkins and Dave Navarro are all on this, and you can hear them. You can hear the drums, especially now. I don't know. I can't really tell. I can't really remember whether those drums are real. Probably a bit of both. It's silly. It's over the top. Did it work? Critically, no. I don't think people really liked it critically. Perry Farrell is always going to, because he started Lollapalooza, he's always going to have influence. He probably sold a fuck ton of this album. I don't know really what it sold. It's a mixed bag of mad shit. It's like someone threw a load of Lego and spiders into a bag and electrified, and like, that's the sound of that. Okay, grand. Well, like, no one else sounds like that. I love it. I love the aggression that he has on it. I love the silliness of him on it. Yeah, no, I like this a lot. So it works for me in some sense. Did it work overall? It hasn't, like some of the radio stuff, the electronic stuff hasn't dated well in it at all. It's stock. It's fucking bits, you know. at the time it sounds good, but years later, much like the drums on Dangerous, Michael Jackson's album, I still don't think they're good.
Yeah.
Some drum loops don't last.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
They really don't.
They just
You gotta fucking be DJ Shadow or The Prodigy to make them shits. Chemical Brothers or Massive Attack to make your beats sound like they are going to last forever.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a short one. That's Perry Farrell.
Grant.
But you have a last one, don't you?
I have a humdinger here.
Did you save the best for last?
No, I did not. This is George Harrison with a song called No Time or Space off a record called Electronic Sound.
That's mad, because in one of our podcasts before was a Sheep in Wolves Clothing that we picked a song that doesn't sound like anyone. I picked an electronic song by Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that George Harrison had done
this. Is fucking mental, right? So this is 1969.
Wow.
1960 fucking 9. And
seriously?
The Beatles had been given their own subsidiary label called Zapple.
Oh.
All right. Now, Zapple was designed to be their own label for like experimental stuff and spoken word and poetry, whatever wouldn't be considered popular music. Now, I don't think it lasted very long.
Anything Yoko ever came out with.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't last very long. This is the last of maybe only 2 records are put out on Zapple. I'm not sure, but this is one of the last ones ever put out.
Oh, okay.
Now, the entire record is 2 songs, right?
Of course.
I think the entire thing runs at 43 minutes. This one song I picked is 25 minutes.
Play the whole lot of it. Play the whole lot of it.
Exactly.
Go on, stick it on there.
This one song is 25 minutes long. Now, to call it a song is a great disservice to songs.
Oh,
right.
Is it really that bad?
It's not music, right? Basically, Jesus Christ, how do I even explain this? Right. So the entire thing is performed on a Moog 3 synthesizer, right? And Harrison had a big hard-on for the fucking Moog. Apparently, he had like one of the first ones ever made. He had
loaded.
Yeah, he was minted. But he had one of the first.
To be fair, they might have just given it to him.
No, he had to buy it.
Did he?
He had to buy it. I'm going to tell you exactly how much it is now in a few minutes as well. He had to buy it. They ended up using the Moog on Abbey Road as well. That's how much of a fan he was of it. That he was able to figure out getting into some Beatles stuff. So this is mental. This track, what you're going to hear now in a minute, wasn't even written by George Harrison. Right?
Really?
I'm going to play a bit of it and come back and tell you. Now I'm literally going to let this roll for 30 seconds because it's just noise. Right? It's absolute. It's garbage. Right? Wait to hear this. Quite enough of that. It's 25 minutes of that.
Wank.
Yeah, 25 minutes of that. Now, here's where it gets interesting. So that's side A to George Harrison, Electronic Sound in 1969. That there is the Moog 3 synthesizer that the Moog salesman brought to Los Angeles to play for George Harrison. So they sent out a team of engineers, because these things had to be assembled. Sent out a team of engineers to whatever recording studio that Harrison had fucking propped up or was set up in LA. And it arrives in, let's say, on a Thursday, and they install it. And the salesman is going to arrive on the Friday to run Harrison through it. But on the sly, Harrison figures out where the line out goes and plugs it into a tape machine, right?
Yeah.
So when the salesman arrives, he comes in and starts talking to Harrison. And he starts messing around with it, saying, like, and it does this, and it does blah, 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 all the time on the sly without the salesman knowing. Harrison is recording the entire thing, right? So I keep saying Harris because I write Harris instead of Harrison in shorthand.
Yeah.
So George is recording the whole fucking thing on the sly. Now the salesman, the main salesman in the US for Moog was a guy called Bernie Krause, who was a really well-respected musician in his own right. He had a group called Beaver and Krause, who were like a pioneering electronic duo, who were signed to Warner Brothers, right? Now I think he might have even sued Harrison because there was stuff that he played on the Moog that was going to end up on their next album or something like that. So Harrison had to put plus Bernie Krause on the fucking label or something like that to try and get around it.
Just being a salesman, and all of a sudden you're on Apple subsidiary with George Harrison.
Yeah. So Bernie had made George take his name off it altogether then as well. Like what you're listening to now is a remix. I don't even there is the remix. Now it's not a remix, but like a remaster version. This is a 2014 mix of it. The second side was a song that he actually wrote, that George Harrison wrote. I don't even know what the name of the second song is. Who cares? Because they're not songs.
He must have had to throw something out onto that label for in a certain amount of time or something.
Maybe. I think this is just because the whole idea behind Zapple was if everything was mad weird and odd. Like it wasn't allowed.
That sounds very music. Forced.
Yeah, but what that song in air quotes, bunny ears, No Time or Space is 25 minutes of a couple of hours worth of demos that your man Bernie Krause messed around with, and they chopped it up. They chopped it up on tape or whatever on reel and made 25 minutes of just noise. And because you have to remember, it's 1969, nobody's heard this shit really. So when this was released, like loads of people thought that this was amazing. Like loads of critics were like, that's the future. That is, like, there's actual reviews saying like it's amazing to see George Harrison, like one of the biggest musicians in the world, like taking this new synthesizer, this Moog 3, and like, you know, given it the fucking putting the wheels underneath it. Surely everybody on earth is going to want a Moog now. Every serious musician is going to want a Moog. If George Harrison, now he did end up buying that model and he had it shipped to his gaff in London, but it cost the equivalent of $60,000.
What?
$60,000.
That's why it only got big in the fucking 80s.
Yep.
And it could be done. That is madness. That's a big supercomputer, though, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a big joint out cables and all hanging out of it. $60,000, and he had to have it shipped and installed as well. It's like that. There's a Japanese company that makes speakers, and I heard music through these speakers. So there's a place called the Listening Suite. It used to be on Wicklow Street in Dublin.
Yeah, I bought. That's where I bought my Riga.
Yeah, you got your RP1 or whatever out there. It's great shop. Yeah, great shop. I went out there a couple of times. I never bought it off you, man. I felt bad because it's just I had enough turntables and all his amps and speakers were insane money. But he had.
They were mad. Like I remember, he was like, "What speakers is this going into?" And I told him I was getting like fucking diamond. And he's like, "Yeah, a lot of people go for them as a cheaper option." I'm like, "Yeah, mate, I'm not fucking rich, mate."
Exactly.
It was so cheeky, but I know he was trying to do. He was like, "Do you think about these speakers?" I went, "No."
Yeah, they're £800 each.
You think about like upgrading this? No, like you know, man, I have a fucking budget. Like I really
exactly.
Do.
Yeah, that's the thing. You like me and you are consumer electronics people. You know what I mean? He's a specialist kind of guy. But I went up there.
Fair
one
play
day.
to me. He wants to get a bigger sale, but ask me, Swiss.
We had this room. He had an upstairs room that was like their listening room. So the shop's called the Listening Suite, and they sell hi-fi equipment. And they had this room up above where he had these two speakers that the likes of which I've never seen before. They were like two big fridge freezers, maybe even bigger. And they were on these like giant spikes. Like the stand was these like 4 giant spikes that were sitting on top of these big concrete slabs. And he had a couch in the middle of the room. And he said, "Do you want to hear something through the?" I can't remember what they were called, like Okinawa or Okanyo or whatever the fuck they were called. It wasn't Okanyo. That's a normal.
It wasn't. I was going to say,
they're great.
They're great, but they're not going to be.
Yeah.
Mental money.
Yeah, this is some other fucking Japanese company. And he said, "No, do you want to hear something?" I said, "All right, yeah." And he put on, I think it was like Ella Fitzgerald or something like that. And I sat there for, honestly, about 20 minutes.
Crying.
It wasn't far off it. I'm not, no word of a lie. I never heard anything like it. It was like she was in the room with me. That's how good it was.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, "How much are these speakers?" He said, 10 grand. I went, 10 grand. He was like, "Oh, 10 grand each." 10 grand each for speakers. And he said, oh yeah, and you can't just buy them. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, no, it's like another 10 grand because the company from Japan, like if you buy these out me, you have to spend another small fortune because they send an engineer out to your house to set the speakers up.
And treat the room probably.
Yeah. So they come in with all this equipment, run all these fucking like sonic analyzers and find the best place.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, like I probably haven't got my hi-fi set up the best way it could be. Like, so if they're selling,
no one does.
It's like Guinness sending someone out to fix the lines, make sure their product
as
is
best as possible.
Yeah, mad though. Mad.
But I know they're the speakers that Henry Rollins has because I heard an interview with Rollins before, and he said his house is essentially empty because he's never home. So what he has, he got a bedroom, a little kitchen that's fuck all in it, and the biggest room in the house is he's got 2 of those speakers and a couch, and then the rest of the house is full of records, and that's
cool.
He just fuck it. That's the only reason he even goes home is to listen to records. He said that's it.
I want to do that. I want to have a gaff for that.
Yeah, 10 grand the pop speakers. I'm sure there's like 15 grand the pop fucking versions of them now anyway.
Yeah, but, he did used to live in like a real rough area, didn't he?
So that was George Harrison with Electronic Sounds, the album again. In commas, like it's garbage, but
it's good to know. It's good to experience it, and then know. And then,
at least if someone asks you,
like
what's the worst thing George Harrison ever made, you can say, well, he didn't even write it. It was he robbed it off a fucking salesman. That's it for this week.
That's interesting. We picked less songs, and we're still over 2 hours.
We are way over 2 hours. Yeah,
that's mad.
We paid samples as well, which is
true.
I added it up. There's around about half an hour worth of fucking samples.
Oh wow,
round about that.
No, there couldn't be. Maybe there is actually.
It's 20 odd minutes. I just done the quick gobshite maths on
well,
me.
Look, yeah, that's our Do the Robot.
Yes.
Do you know what? If you liked that one, you'll like the episode. Keeping Up with the Kids, which is when bands change their sound to a more modern style.
Yes.
So this was more electronic based, and I know Aerosmith and Machine Head I think are in that other one we talked about.
Yeah, very much.
So yeah, that was
very much. That's it for this week. We done TV on Saturday gone. I hope it went well. We're recording this pre-TV, but you're going to hear it post-TV. We're back again on Saturday with something, and then we're back again next Monday with some more podcasts. If you like what we do, you can go to lostartpodcast.com. If you really like what we do, you can subscribe to our Patreon, which is €5 or $5 a month. It's at patreon.com/lostartpodcast. And there's links in this podcast, in the feed, wherever you get your podcast, there's links to supporting us. We've got like a Ko-Fi account as well, which is it's done in $3 increments as well if you just want to tip us for our work, because we need some money. None of us are working. It is bullshit. But thanks to everybody for helping us out. People have been sharing like maniacs last week, which is great. And people,
yes, did. We guilted you into it.
We guilted the fuck out of you, and people really helped us out last Saturday with a radio show as well. For the first time ever, a lot of people
actually gave us like 110 quid or
something like that. Yeah,
no, I shouldn't say what much it was, but yeah, that's fucking nice one.
Yeah, it's great.
That'll help fucking a shitload considering
I was able to eat this week.
Yeah, you didn't have to go foraging for berries.
For real, honest to God. Although I did find some cakes.
You didn't have to eat a carrot out of a skip.
Exactly, I did find some cupcakes
on the road. Had taught him.
Exactly, I did find cupcakes on the road, but I let the dogs have them. So that's it for this week. Back again next week with more podcasts. Thank you very much. Good night.
See ya.